I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Okay, so welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host, Yannick, and on today's episode, we are talking about the impact on mental health on young black boys. So I've got some amazing special guests with me today, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle. I'm a mental health coach and I help people uncover the root causes of their traumas and anxiety and start to overcome it by rewiring their nervous system.
Hi everyone, my name is Sinead. I'm a psychotherapist, a celebrity journalist, and I encourage healthy conversations about mental health.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony. I'm one of the co-founders of Step Now, which is a mentoring organisation focusing on young black boys within Lambeth and Suffolk predominantly.
Okay, so just to get us started with, from your experiences or from your lived experiences, what do you think are some of the unique challenges that young black boys face in regards to their mental health?
I would say the lack of resources and the lack of education, particularly in schools. I feel like when you're in secondary school particularly, that's when you're finding yourself and learning about yourself and who you are, and they don't teach mental health in schools. So when you're learning about yourself and you're growing and you're becoming a man, you're going to experience all of these emotions and all these physical sensations, particularly when you're living in the world and being at school. And if you're not taught that, you know, if your heart is beating fast or if you're feeling quite nervous or you're shaking, that's anxiety, then you're not going to understand your physical sensations and what that means for you. So you're unable to put a name to that feeling, and then it can cause you to doubt yourself and struggle with your mental health because you're unable to know what it means or what you're struggling with.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting that you were speaking about how the sort of body feels, especially in regards to anxiety, because one of the things that, you know, I do when I go to schools and I'm training around like emotional regulation, I talk about body mapping and as a way for students to identify how their body feels when they're dysregulated, but I've never thought about how the body feels as a result of you know, a mental health impact.
Definitely.
In terms of like anxiety. So that was an interesting point of view, definitely.
I would say one thing that sometimes, I'll say from like an African background, we're so focused on teaching boys how to be a man that we don't actually allow them to be a happy child and have a healthy childhood. And because of this thing of you have to be strong, but then our strength is rooted in pain. So now you're causing pain to your child all in the name of teaching them how to be strong, instead of actually teaching them how to identify how they're feeling, how to regulate themselves, and how to actually listen to their bodily feelings. Because some of us growing up, it's like, you have to do what I say when I say it. But more time, I'm tired. That's why people grow up and it's like, I can't have a break, because when I break, I feel like I'm being lazy. Because whenever I wanted to have a break when I was a child, I was being told I was lazy. But you didn't teach me how to be organized so I could manage my time better. So I am now not doing what I need to do. There was no consistency, so how would I know how to be consistent? So I would say, if young boys were actually taught the little things that it took to take care of themselves and not have to be responsible for adults' emotions and just feel like they need to be a man, they need to provide at that young age. There's a time for each thing to happen.
Yeah, no, I think to go for what you just said, I think you took my answer right there. But I'll add to it anyway. Definitely cultural myths. Again, growing up in Afro-Caribbean households, you know what I mean, you're told to be tough, be strong, get on with it. And I think it's the importance of reframing that word strength and strong, because the strength comes from you being vulnerable and being able for you to identify what's actually wrong and understanding that there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable, you know. But growing up, you're told, be strong. Strong just means getting on with it. No, it doesn't. So I think lack of education in the home as well about mental health, because, you know, there's a reason why the parents are saying these things, because they're not even aware themselves, because they're learning from their past, you know. So
yeah, definitely. And I feel for me, again, it goes back to that idea of, family and culture and the experiences that you have within, the household. Because a lot of, African, Caribbean families, especially within African families, you start to speak about mental health to your parents. And the first response is, God forbid. God forbid. So then from that God forbid, you can't even come and discuss it because it's making it seem as if it's demonic. It's demonic. I don't really want to go, into that, but it makes it seem as if, it's demonic, and I know that makes it very, very difficult, for young black boys to, have those conversations within the home. So Shah, you mentioned earlier when you was talking about mental health, learning not being within schools, especially within secondary school. Do you guys think that mental health needs to be taught earlier? Should it be in primary schools, or do you think that's too...
No. I think I teach my daughter about, not necessarily mental health, but I teach her about emotions. Yeah. And I teach her about understanding her emotions and how she feels and how to articulate herself. Yeah. And I think if I had a son, I would do the same. So I think it's important that as parents, we teach our children from young just about their emotions so that they can be aware of how they feel emotionally. So, they can articulate themselves and say, I'm not feeling happy. Okay, why are you not feeling happy? What happened? Oh, mummy, you shouted at me and it made me feel this way. Okay. And then have that discussion so that they can feel confident in vocalizing how they feel emotionally. Yeah. Because when we think about mental health, it starts from an emotion and it starts from feeling that emotion but not being able to articulate that emotion. So then instead of articulating it, you suppress that emotion and then you don't know what to do with that emotion. And then you might go to other things just to kind of compensate for that emotion as opposed to articulating how you're feeling. And then that's when it kind of builds up and continues. And then it can manifest in other things such as anger or irritability. So it's about, yes, definitely teaching children from young just about emotional awareness and the understanding of themselves.
Yeah. And why do you guys think... we've sort of dived into it on a surface level, but why do you guys think discussions around mental health, for young black boys, is stigmatized within our community? I'm sort of thinking about growing up, and I went to an all-boys school. I don't recall in the 5 years that I was in that school hearing anxiety, hearing about depression, or it's like if you showed any signs of vulnerability, you're a mug. Like, people are taking advantage of you. And I sort of, now in adulthood, I sort of sit back and reflect, and I think to myself, wait, so you're telling me from year 7 to year 11 no one had any losses, no one had any pains, no one had nothing that they went through that just tore them up? People was coming into school, blazers on, and everyone was like happy as Larry. Like, that couldn't have been the case. But no one had those discussions. I couldn't tell you a time where I sat down with any of my friends or with any teachers, or my friends sat down with me and said, you know what, this is what I'm going through. I'm struggling. But I can tell you that there were struggles. I had struggles, within the home, within my personal life, whatever that may be. But those discussions, weren't had. So what is it within our community that, there's like a stigma around having these discussions around mental health for black boys?
You know what? And I'll say for the Afro-Caribbean, there's a thing of, it needs to keep it hush-hush at home. And I believe that promotes abuse, because now they don't want you to talk about the bad things going on at home, but you're not going to change it to become any better. And it's a thing of, you need to protect the family name, but to what cost? And it's that thing of, because I have to make sure, a lot of African parents are so afraid of looking like a bad parent that they don't do the work to be a good parent. So they're going to tell you to shut up and be quiet when they're outside, but they're going to ignore your emotions. So now they're going to ignore your needs as a child, your primary need, which is attachment. And they're going to deprive you of your primary need, which is connection with your primary parent. So now you have an insecure attachment growing up. And all because they're afraid of someone else telling them that you're a bad parent because your child is acting out. And a lot of parents don't understand their children's developmental need and stages. And also for boys, they have more testosterone, so they're more active. They learn more actively, they need activities that have them jumping whilst learning. But you're having them sitting down in the classroom for how many hours? Of course they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be like, there's going to be a lot of built up energy that they're not allowed to express. And it's that thing of focusing on them doing things the right way. If a child is climbing up the slide, there's no right way to go to use the slide. And you're always labeling the child naughty child. Is the way we talk to children is brazy. From even 2 to 3, my son is 2, I go to the playground and I'm seeing another parent tell my son not to be like their child because the child is naughty. I'm like, rah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. And we don't understand how much, I always say this, the external voice becomes the internal voice. That's why so many people are self-critical. Because that's all you've ever heard. You're not good enough. You're a naughty child. You're a bad child. So how am I going to think any different? 0 to 7, kids taking everything. And because we don't want to be real and say that, no, certain things is actually abusive. Like we laugh about getting beats, getting shouted at, being afraid of our parents' footsteps as they're entering the door. That's not normal. Like, that's actually not normal. But then people will say that, obviously our parents tried their best with the tools that they had. But if you're making the same mistakes, is mediocrity what you want to call your best?
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a time where I feel like we need to call it for what it is. Certain things was abused. Obviously, they didn't have the tools, but let's call it for what it is so people actually take it seriously and not just say that, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for married people with kids. It's hard for single parents with kids. But the earlier you do the harder things, which is sitting down with your child, teaching them how to label their emotions, then how to regulate and what to do when they're overwhelmed. Then now they know that, okay, when I'm angry, I don't need to shout. I can go maybe scream in my room. I can have this teddy that I hug tightly. Yeah. I can push against the wall. Like, I can do breathing. But if you never teach them, how are they supposed to know?
Yeah. And how about for you, Tony? Like, within the work that you're doing, like, what are the sort of stigmas that you're seeing in terms of like young black boys and them not wanting to like communicate around their mental health?
I think it comes down to a few things, not just one. But what stands out to me is the lack of socio-emotional learning in schools, in the community, in the household, as well. And that comes from, I guess, emphasizing the impacts of self-regulation, for example, and self-awareness and how to act within that realm, you know, because everything we do unconsciously is not tailored towards black people where we are, let's be honest, unless we specifically promote programs or initiatives that are tailored towards black people. So I feel like there needs to be more done in schools, in the home, in the churches, in the community groups, wherever it is, that's all focused around social emotional learning, but obviously contextually around culture of young black boys. So
no, that's important, definitely. And Shah, as a psychotherapist, what do you sort of tend to see like your clients, like when you're working with like young black adults and men? What are some of the issues or most common issues are you seeing in terms of like your clients and how do they sort of tend to manifest?
It ranges between, I would say, anxiety, depression, and PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder. And I feel that I don't get a lot of men, actually, if I'm honest. I feel like I get a lot of consultations from men, so they'll come and they want to talk to me and have an assessment. But then when it comes to starting therapy, they tend to step back a bit. So I think it's the...
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's the, you know what, I really want to do this, but then when it gets to literally going over that line, they sort of get some nerves or something?
I think it's that vulnerability, knowing that I'm going to have to be open. I'm going to have to maybe explore things that I may have never explored before in my life. I'm going to have to speak to a stranger about things that I'm struggling with today. And I think that maybe scares them off a bit because, you know, sometimes you're afraid of the unknown. If I now divulge how I've been feeling for almost all my life, my upbringing, my school years, my work, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And sometimes people can be comfortable with with not knowing how they're going to feel. And they stick in that because that's what they know and that's what they feel comfortable with. And so it can deter them from wanting to speak and be vulnerable, especially young boys or men. You know, as you both have said that masculinity and, you know, be strong, you're a man, and it's come from the household and the culture. So being strong and being a man is not speaking to a therapist about, oh, I feel depressed or oh, I feel anxious, you know. So they have that internal dialogue that kind of stops them from taking that next step.
No, definitely. And I agree. I think even when I think about my own personal life, like there were times when I said to myself, oh, do you know what, I really want to do therapy or I was considering therapy. But when I look back at from when I was considering it to when I actually started doing or going to therapy, that's like years apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's like years apart from when I was like, oh, do you know what, I really need this, or, you know, I need to speak to someone or whatever else. From when I actually start, that's like years apart. So like that first step, and I can't, it was going to take a long time for me to even pinpoint what was, you know, the sort of like catalyst or the push to get me over that line. But, you know, some people just need that extra time, and I think it sort of leads on to like my next question, like how do we create those safe, you know, environments for, you know, our young black boys to, you know, to be able to you know, speak and talk about like their mental health, like within schools, within communities, within churches, like wherever that, you know, may be. And I'm thinking back in terms of like my role as a head of year. One of the things that I always try to do, and I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, is just create that safe space for my students.
100%.
And sometimes that meant me, you know, giving them advice. Sometimes it meant just listening. Students will come, you know, and these are young black boys. Like they're crying, they're going through, you know, whatever they're going through, and I'm just giving them
love.
That that love. But how do we create those environments? How can school create those environments? Because you go to school and they just focus on the curriculum. You're given your timetable, and your timetable says you're in period 1 to period 5. And you're in there just for the learning. So there's no, you know, you're talking about social, emotional. Like that's not on my timetable. That's not my timetable. But then break time, I got to run around. Lunchtime, I need to eat. So everything that's happened within the school that could have stressed me out and whatever else, now I'm taking it home and have to deal with the baggage of whatever's, you know, at home, and you haven't had time to process that. And, you know, these new school kids, like, some people are on the VRs and the PlayStations, and then you're back to school, and it's that same cycle again of, like, you know, no one's talking to anyone. So how do we create those safe spaces?
Before I answer, let me ask you a question. When you was head of year, what made you take up that role of actually being that sounding board for these young boys? Why did you do it?
Do you know what? When I see any young black boy, I see me. I see me. And I also acknowledge the position that, you know, that I'm in now. I acknowledge the position I was, you know, like in that time when I first walked into the school, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Like everyone, we got a head of year, and the head of year is black.
Yeah.
The head of year's never been black.
Yeah.
Always a good feeling.
And the trim's fresh and the suit. And they can see I was man them. So they was chopping it up with me like we was cool. Yeah. Yes, I will discipline you, but I'm showing you love as well. And I was really intentional with supporting them because I know how hard it is. You know, I know how hard it is out there.
And that's the answer I wanted from you. Because I knew you were going to say that. It's your lived experience.
Yeah.
That's what made you unconsciously be that sounding board that you needed when you was in school. So how do we get over that? We need more people like you that are in positions of trust, or people like here, you know, ideally men, because we're talking about young black boys here, to go into the schools, educate these teachers, educate the TAs, educate the governors about how we can, I guess, incorporate this into the curriculum. Yeah. Informally. It might actually even start in form group. In the first 10 minutes, checking how's everyone feeling at 1 to 10. Feeling the free. Why are you feeling the free? Oh, I went to bed late last night. Why did you go to bed late? A conversation starts to be had, and that alone, having young black boys being able to speak openly, will then bring out more and more and more each day. Do you know what I mean?
The ones that just,
so if we take away, because the word therapy is stigmatized in our community, unfortunately it is. If we just make it conversation. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Let's just talk. Let's not put titles and things. Let's just talk. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit sad, sir, because of someone said, oh, my girlfriend dumped me. Normalize it. Let's make it informal
and transparent conversations.
And for whatever comes out of that, then we can start to seek help and signpost to therapists and psychotherapists. We can do that. But initially, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. I love that.
So you highlighted the key of, because we're men and we're talking about young black boys, we need to be intentional. Do you ladies think that there's less impact of you as black females supporting young black boys in comparison to black males, or do you think support and love is support and love no matter? Or is there something significant in the presence of, you know, a black man in a young black boy's life, whether it's father, leader, mentor, whatever?
I would say there's definitely a significance, but then the women are also needed, because your relationship with your mother a lot of the time is broken with a lot of young black boys because the mother is relying on them. So because it's broken, if they at least have that one person that's a healthier relationship outside there, now they know how to relate with women as well. And then also they can seek out someone that can support them as well, and they can have trust, because how many times you be hearing men say don't trust women? But the thing is, it's not about there just being bad women all around. It's about knowing how to sift and sort with the type of person that you can trust, because I believe in talking to people and opening up, but it's not everybody you need to talk to. And from talking to the wrong people, now you're consistently doing the same thing. So now you're mistrusting women and thinking that it's just women, but no, it's because you're so stuck in that pattern of choosing the wrong people to talk to. Now you can't trust yourself to make that choice of who to trust. So if we have the women also saying that we can create this space for you, we're not going to judge you, we're not going to throw it in your face, then that will also facilitate better relationships within the community. Because now we definitely need men leading this, but then also the women over there as well saying that we can also facilitate the space for you as well. And I think something that sometimes some women might do unknowingly, more time is also because they haven't dealt with their stuff, is that they might take on their emotions too much and then turn the problem to them. So then it beats the purpose. So now it's like, I've got my stress, now I have to console you as a man as well. So I was speaking to some men recently and they said that, and it is a thing that you do see happening. So I'll say, as women, knowing whether you have the space to take it on, for them to truly have a safe space. And if you don't, try to signpost them to someone else, because you don't have to be the savior to create that space. Sometimes you actually signposting them to someone else that can handle it will do so much better for them as well.
What about your thoughts?
She said it all. I agree with what you said, 100%. It's both. I guess having a male role model is important as well, but also a woman, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I'm going to add to that. Women are equally as important, if not more. Like, I remember being in school.
Oh, don't say it like
No.
that.
No.
Everyone on social media is going to be saying...
No. I'm just amplifying
don't
even
believe
more
in
to
the
give it a
women.
bit
No,
more
I'm
bass.
for the women.
Do you know what I mean? A bit more bass,
Yeah.
like,
Alright,
because
cool,
you know
cool.
our first love is a woman at the end of the day, and you know from being boys going into men, we get softer around women. Do you know what I mean? Women have, generally speaking, are nurturing. You know, they've got higher emotional quotient than we have. They've got the empathy. Do you know what I mean? They know how to listen.
Yeah.
And just talk, you know, soft voice. That alone will make a boy more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, 100%. So Tony, I want to go on to you because I know that Step Now have been doing some amazing work, and for those in the audience or online who don't know, so Step Now started what's called a barbershop experience within Lambeth Council, where they're offering barbershop and sort of mental health support for young black boys in Lambeth. So Tony, I wanted to know more about how did that start, what was the thought process behind it, and what's the sort of impact that we've been seeing from that type of work.
Okay, now firstly, we can't take the credit for the idea. No, so this is something that was released by the Department for Education and funded by Lambeth Council. So the tender went out and we applied for the tender. We got the tender. So essentially, what it is, it's a safe space where we go into schools, 2 schools each term. So 6 schools overall for the academic year, and we run 12 sessions in each school. And what the sessions are about are pretty much incorporating uses up your street now. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which for those who don't know, I'm gonna try my best to get it right. So when you're looking at me with the emails, I'm gonna try my best.
I won't look.
It's pretty much about changing negative patterns of thinking and behavior. That's right. And pretty much finding ways of turning that into a positive. So that's what we're doing now with these young boys, predominantly in year 8 and year 9, so aged 12 to 14, 12 to 14. And essentially, we just go there and do our thing all around emotional awareness, mental health awareness, physical awareness, career development, financial literacy, relationships, family and friend relationships, more so the relationship they have with themselves. So all this is around those different things, and we actually work with barbers. So the barbershop itself is a pop-up. It's been made by architects.
That's
been
amazing.
designed.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's been designed, the boys sit on benches.
Did they get the haircut?
They get their haircut.
Oh,
So
that's
one
so
young
good.
person gets a haircut every single session, or get the hair braided. The
that's
barbers
really
are coming
good,
to have a
man.
conversation with the boys about what we're speaking about, so they're involved in it as well.
It's so creative.
And essentially, it is about that safe space, because if we go back and look at, let's say, the late 80s, early 90s TV sitcom Desmond's. Do you know what I mean? Barbershop, or even the film is Barbershop. It's a space where even people that ain't even getting trims, even the barbershop's making noise. It's a community.
That's the culture.
Yeah.
I remember back
There.
in the days,
It's so
like,
true.
Getting the trim.
the DVD man's coming in, the
You know what I
same
mean?
man,
Everyone's
like,
there,
going barbershop, you see
selling
the same
food.
people.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Or the
that's
Caribbean
reason-
shop next door.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The reason why we jumped on it and we applied for it is because we thought that resonates with us. One of our core pillars is health, mental health. One of our core pillars that we teach. Let's go and do this for the health pillar.
Yeah.
And being a young black boy, going through the whole barbershop experience, when your kid go with your mum or your dad or your guardian, you're scared at the beginning. You put on the booster chair and you're scared of the razor. I don't want to do. I hate this place. Then you start getting through your adolescent years to teenage years. You might go by yourself now, and you're like a fly on the wall in the conversation. They're talking about music and clubbing and women and football. You're listening. Okay, cool. Then you get older. University, man age, whatever, and you're now center of the conversation. I want to talk about this.
I love
know,
that.
I
It's so
want to talk
powerful. I
about-
loved
do you know
how
what I
you
mean?
talk about just the journey,
The
from a
journey.
boy,
It's mad. Do you know what I
going
mean?
in, and then adolescence, and then adult, and then
So it
that's so
makes sense for
beautiful.
us to jump on it.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
love that.
been doing amazing things, and we're looking forward to developing it even more after that as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
That's
amazing. I love
amazing.
that. I love that.
And I think there's definitely something that can be learned from that in terms of trying to figure out actually what more can we do in the community? Because this is our community, this is our culture. Like we don't need the Department of Education to tell us
That's
that,
true.
That
this is what happens in the barbershop. And I'm sure it's the same.
we know it.
So
I'm
we
sure
don't,
it's the same for the hairdressers, because when I used to go with my mum and she's under that thing for
Time.
like she's talking to like they've got
Everyone's
their
chatting,
community. Then my sister would come in and like
we all have our story about
Yeah.
hair.
So I think it's important to
You know, one thing that I brought up for me is like more time, when young boys are acting out, they just want to be heard. They want attention. But wanting attention is not bad because it's wanting to be seen and be heard. So now they have that experience. It's like, right, like, you know what? Someone understands me. And that's the thing that people use to take advantage of kids. Because it's like, right, I understand you. You know, you want some extra money, that type of thing. Or your parents are just moving mad. But I'm the older. I understand you. But more time, they don't have your best interest at heart.
Exploiting,
But because they have that primary need of wanting to be understood that is not met, that person outside now has more value to your child because they're meeting that primary need that you're refusing to meet as a parent, because you think like, no, they just need to respect, but you're not showing them love. You're not even... a lot of parents talk about kids being ungrateful, but how many times do you tell your child what about them that you're grateful for? Because how would they know to be grateful if you don't show them? Or if you don't, how many times a week do you practice it with your child? Because we don't talk about this first, but we go to kids being ungrateful. So how would they know?
So true.
So just creating that space for them, definitely.
I think also to add, I think it's about being creative as well, you know, because we go into school, we learn maths, English, science, like, it's boring. So we want to be creative. And I love what you said about the barbershop. And that's so creative in the sense of, as you know, as they grow up, they learn about their hair, their self-image, their mental health and women and sports and so many different things. And for me, that's why I do what I do, because I wanted to be creative. And I know that, you know, when we're growing up, we see people on TV, you know, whether actors or musicians or whoever it may be, and we may either aspire to be like them or we just enjoy watching them and we, you know, get value from that. So that's why, for me, I interview who I do, because I know that they have such an influence on the younger generation and how they see themselves. And if you can see someone who you see on TV speaking about mental health, then that's like, wow, like on such a big broadcasting platform. And it will also make you feel like, okay, maybe let me Google what mental health is, or let me read a book, or, you know. So
Definitely. And I feel, you know, when I watched a couple of like your videos and saw who you had on, I was thinking, wow, like it makes you think like they're going through it as well. Because often, whether it's young black boys or young black girls, again, it's about the communication. If no one's speaking, you think you're the only one in the world
100%.
that is going through this. So as soon as someone communicates, like, I'm struggling, it's like when you come out of, you know, the maths test. And everyone's like, oh, what question 7 is this? But you don't want to be the one that be like, listen, you know what? I didn't get that one. You're not the only one. Someone else got it wrong as well. Someone else struggled as well. You know, so I think it's really important to communicate.
100%.
And Shah, I wanted to ask, so as you know, as a psychotherapist, so within your field, what is the importance of like representation within that field and within the field of sort of like, you know, therapy and like mental health support? And do you think that impacts the engagement of like young black boys and young black adults?
100%. And this brings me back to about almost a decade now. And the reason why I started what I did in do my interviews, but also become a psychotherapist. I was a support worker on a psychiatric ward, and we had the odd few black people, but I just saw the treatment that the black people would get on the ward, and it really angered me. And I think from seeing that, it was like, I have to do something. I took it in my own hands, and I was like, I need to do something because I don't like the treatment that I'm seeing my people get, you know. And then from that, it was like, okay, what do I do? And then I thought, okay, I need to go to the masses. I need to go to the people who have the influence and start a campaign and get us talking about our mental health and our well-being, so that we can learn and understand that we're not alone, but know that there is help out there. And as a psychotherapist, I'm here to help you. And if it's not me, I can signpost you to a therapist that I know, or help you get through the system, you know, because if you don't see someone who looks like you able to help you, or people that you know, how are you going to know where to go for help for your mental health, you know? Especially when it comes to therapy, like a psychologist and a psychotherapist. It is a very middle-class role. It's a very
100%.
middle-class job. And I remember a nurse said to me, because I wanted to become a psychologist, and she said, you'll never become a psychologist because that's a white middle-class job. And that stayed with me. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll show you, you know. But it's, you know, even when you work in the NHS industry, it's a lot predominantly of white women or men, you know, from the middle class background. You don't really get to see many black women or black men in that field. So it's for us who have that position to show ourselves and, you know, show that we are here, we can help you, we can get you through the system, you know. So representation matters so much, and is a big thing for me, because it's why I do what I do and why I've grown to heights that I've grown to, because it's for the people, it's for my people, you know. It's not just for me, it's for you. And so yeah, and
I think definitely that sort of permeates within, you know, those who are looking for that support in terms of, you know, what, like, listen, my counsellor's black. I was looking for black. I wasn't even thinking of, because it's just that you might not know me, but
but you know me,
you know, my skin, based on who I am, there's just you know an understanding that you're going to get certain nuances that, you know, a white therapist you know, just wouldn't understand.
I was gonna say, like, Charlotte, your role is very, very key across, I think, anyone that's working with young people specifically as well. And even us, we made sure that we got clinical supervision as part of our organisation now. So every single month, we're speaking to people like Shah, because don't forget, if you work in a school or work with young people, whatever it is, you're getting unloaded with a lot of stuff. Trauma, everything. That's just bad conversations you're hearing. So how do we now unload that to someone else? And that's what they do. Do you know what I mean? So I think, just to answer what you said initially, people like Shah need to be in the schools as well. They need to have a clinical supervision inside the school every single month for the teachers and the staff. Because if they're dealing with, how many kids are in schools nowadays?
It's like 30 a class?
Yeah, you have like 30 a class.
Let's just say 800. Don't know, 800
it's
kids.
A lot, it's a lot.
And if you, depending what kind of teacher you was in school, obviously. So how many kids were you interacting with every single day about problems and issues and dealing with their parents?
Like it was a lot. Too much.
A lot.
Too much.
But did you have clinical supervision?
No.
You had to find your own one, right?
I didn't even find my own.
But then you was taking it home.
Exactly, I was taking it home.
Unconsciously.
But then, the thing with me, why it didn't impact me as much that I'm having to take it home, because you're taking this home and it's happened to you. These things are happening to the young black boys that I'm dealing with. So I'm even more worried that you're taking this home. So your baggage is greater than mine. And I'm an adult, so I'm gonna, you know, hold this burden. But you, as the 14, 15, 16-year-old, sometimes I'll think, like,
how do you regulate that?
Like, how are you in class and you're smiling? How are you? And because of my role, I had to know so many things about students. Even if a student's not acting out, because I'm one of, like, the safeguarding needs, I need to know your file. So I would know everything that's happened from, you know, nursery, primary to now you're in secondary school. And you might be calm now in, you know, getting on with the work, but I still know, like, your background. And I used to just think, like, how? How are you,
So sad.
you know, like, killing it in class, you know, you're so... But, you know, X, Y, and Z, you know, has happened to you. But they don't get that support. So we're talking about, the adults, the teachers, but who's giving them, you know, that support? And we was talking about it earlier in terms of, like, normalising these things. It's not until later that you get to a stage where you realise it's okay and it's healthy to have supervision or to see a therapist, or, you know, to do these kind of things. Maybe because they're a bit young, it's a bit technical for them. So the best we can do, as you said earlier, Tony, is just encourage those. Let's just have conversations. Let's just start them off on a basic level.
Yeah.
Just have open conversations. And when it's sort of, they get older, maybe it can be, more structured.
To add on to that, this conversation is like really gearing me up. To add on to that, I feel like as well, you mentioned, how are people still smiling? How are you still getting on with schoolwork? And the brain is very powerful. And if you go through trauma, your brain is there to protect you. So your brain will automatically suppress that, what you've gone through. Yeah. So then you put it at the back of your mind. It's now in your subconscious mind. You're not thinking about it. You're thinking about, okay, I've got to be at school. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But then that will carry on. As you get older, that will come from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind and start impacting you in your life today. And that just goes to show the power of the brain. And I know it's so important to understand the power of your brain and how to rewire your neurons and your neurochemicals in order to understand yourself, because if we don't learn about our brain and the science behind the way we think, feel and behave, we're never going to know how to change. So yes, it's important to understand about mental health and anxiety and depression, but that's just when you're stressed or when your emotions get to a stage where you can't manage. We need to start learning from the basics, and the basics is the science, and the basics is the brain, understanding about your brain and your mind and how you can have control over your brain and your mind to speak about things or act in certain ways to manage the way you're thinking and feeling and using your emotions, because these things are so basic. And it's like, when I'm studying these things, it's like, why was this not taught in school? This is basic levels, and it just really frustrates me at the fact that these basic things are not taught in schools. It needs to be taught in schools. It needs to be in the science curriculum. In science, I can't even remember what I learned in school about science, but we need to learn plants, like, how is this benefiting us? Like, respectfully, how is it benefiting us? It's not. We need to, things need to be taught from the school, and there's a reason why they don't want to teach it. If they teach the masses about the brain.
Like, there's even one thing you said, jumping off what you said as well, a lot of young people are high functioning. They've got high functioning anxiety and high functioning depression. So they can't even identify. Like for me, I used to have heart palpitations, but I was high functioning. So you'll always see me, I'm getting involved in stuff in the community. I'm here doing this event. I'm doing this and that. And everyone's always seeing me happy. But then I'm having the heart palpitations. But then I'm going home and I'm crying and I'm tired. And even looking back, there was really a point in time where I was depressed, because I was just like, I'm tired. Like, I'm just done. I wasn't suicidal, but I was just over it type of thing. But then depression looks different, especially within black people, especially within black men and black women, because you're just taught to push through. So even looking back, a lot of young black boys are high functioning depressed, because how many of them talk about not thinking they're going to make it past a certain age? How many of them talk about not feeling emotions? How many of them are needing weed to numb their feelings? These are all signs. But then, because we don't label things as they are, we are thinking, that's just a bad child. They're just rebelling. But no, they have been shut out so much that they're going towards these things. And because maybe you might see them show up, you might see them happy, the worst one, laughter. You're just laughing at everything to mask the pain.
The class clown.
Literally, the class clown.
Always did, yeah.
But they just want attention. They just actually want acceptance. And that is the worst one, because that's that person that out of nowhere, they're going to do a madness because so much has been suppressed. And the thing is, it's not too technical, That's why when I try to explain things, I try to break it down to the simplest form so that you can understand. For anyone that has an excuse, I have a solution. Because it's not about it being easy. It's about doing what needs to be done to get there. So it's like in the gym. When you start working out, your body's hurting with that weight. But then after a week or two, it gets easier. That's the same thing with teaching kids how to regulate. And as you're saying as well, you can make it fun. Like me, I get upset sometimes. Like, I don't try to say that I'm happy all the time. It's normal to be upset. But the thing is, when your baseline is high, that is when there's a problem, because you're easily dysregulated. Sometimes I shout when I'm upset. It helps me regulate. So I'm just like, I shout. If my son is there, I roar. I'm like, roar, because he likes roaring. But then I'm not putting my emotions onto him.
Yeah.
So now when he's growing up, I can teach him, when you're upset, just roar.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not bad to feel negative emotions, but we've made kids feel like it's bad to feel negative emotions. So now boys are suppressing it. Now it's like, I'm always calm, man. I'm always happy. It's not normal to always be happy.
Yeah. No, that's right. High functioning, like anxiety, and that's so interesting because I feel like that's something that I used to do a lot of, and we go back to that word of resilience. But was it really resilience, or I just don't want to express and show what I'm really going through, so I'm just gonna plow so that no one,
survival
like
mode
is noticing. Essentially, you get into survival mode, definitely. So I wanted to know, like from you guys, in terms of like your work in the community, etc. What are some practical, like, sort of tools or techniques that you would advise parents or schools, or even like young black boys to use, adults, anyone, when they're stressed? Like when you're going through that stress, what's some practical, tools that you advise that they can use?
There's so many tools. I would say 2 things are coming to my mind right now, and that's going for a walk, just going by yourself, going for a walk, just getting outside and not kind of staying in that environment where you're feeling quite stressed or anxious, and just walking, and journaling, writing down your thoughts on paper, because things can stay stuck in your mind, and you could be overthinking, you could be ruminating, you could just have so much in your head that if you don't process that on a piece of paper, you will go mad. And that's for anyone, even me as a professional. And just, practicing, whether it's in the morning, just writing down your thoughts and just getting it out of your head onto a piece of paper, because that's a form of expression.
Yeah.
So yes, therapy is a form of expression. Also, journaling and writing down how you're feeling is a form of expression. And then what you'll find is that you will start to gather information about yourself so that you can learn about yourself and use that writing to help you in other areas of your life.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'll just jump on what you said. If you don't like writing, record a voice note. There's AI that can turn it into a written thing now, because not everybody likes to be writing and stuff. And one thing I would say is look at the work within yourself that needs to be done, because especially for parents, I've had a couple parents come to me that they want me to help their child, but I'm like, I can't help your child if I can't help you, because there's been something broken as to why your child is now having this behavior. So if I help your child but I don't help you, they're still going to that person that caused them that pain. And it's being able to ask yourself the right questions to truly understand what's going on. And sometimes, and the thing is, you can accept the pain that your parents caused to you, but also acknowledge that they didn't have the tools. But because people don't want to accept the pain that their parents have done to them, they're blocking themselves from actually, understanding what they've really been through and the effects that's actually had on them. That's why some people say, I've been beaten, but I'm still okay. No, you're not okay. You're suppressing, you're just surviving. And I'll say the first thing is actually starting to truly understand yourself and what has caused you to be the way you are right now, because you can't treat what you don't understand. So you can't help yourself if you don't understand it. If not, you're always going to get to that, because we always ask for the tools, but then why are you only needing it when you get to that extreme breaking point? So how do you help yourself before you get to that breaking point? Asking yourself, like, the why. So why do I get so angry when someone starts to give me feedback? When was the earliest moment that happened? Do I feel heard? Do I feel seen? How does that make me feel? And like, why does it make me feel like that? So when you start to ask the why behind the why, you start to have a deeper understanding. And taking that time out to do that would help you see that, okay, now I'll make that intentional note. Whenever I start to feel triggered, I'll take a step back. Like, why am I feeling triggered right now? Or I'll remove myself from that situation so that I don't lash out and put it onto someone as well. So I'll say that is another tool to use as well.
I'll just add very briefly, I'll say put yourself in positive spaces. Connect with people that are maybe like-minded,
Yeah.
but also open to teaching you new ways of thinking or acting. Because essentially, even like a friendship group, if you've got a friendship group that's very dismissive and everything's a joke,
Yeah.
then if I'm not going to come to you, I can't come to you because it could be made a joke, right? So definitely put yourself in a positive environment. I think reflection is very, very important as well. As parents, as young people, reflect.
Yeah.
We do one thing, one of our sessions called reactions, and essentially they did one thing on the first or second session where, stop touching me, leave me alone, like just reacting to everything when I'm trying to teach the session.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do something now called reactions, and if you guys get over 20 reactions per session, you're not going to get your end of program surprise. We always give end of program. You're not getting it. So now what happens if they do a reaction, I make the person who did the reaction come and do the tally on the board and write name underneath it. Essentially, what's happened now, after 11 weeks of doing the program now, there's only like 2 or 3 reactions now. Where before they're like 25. Stop, why are you doing that for? We've got enough. So unconsciously they're thinking they can control themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's some sort of incentive at the end, but they can control themselves. So I think this, making it, I guess.
And also to add, pray. Let's not take God out of the equation. Like, I'm very big on God.
Yeah.
Very big on God, especially because I've learnt the science. I understand the science. But we don't talk a lot about faith and God.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of.
yeah.
No, that was going to be my answer.
Oh, was it?
Cool. I'm going to
Sorry,
keep that.
sorry.
I'm not even going to edit that out so people will know that you're taking my answer.
Sorry.
But yeah, so the 2 things I would have said was like have an accountability group.
Yeah.
I've got an accountability group with 2 of my friends. So there's 3 of us all together. That's what the group is for.
I
When
love
you're
that.
checking into that group, when you call that group, when we meet up for, that's what the group is for. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Like accountability. How you doing? How's life? How's the family? How's whatever else. So if even have that group from young, have that group from young where you're just checking in with each other, holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
And as you said, pray as well. I think for me, like faith has always been a big thing. Even when I was struggling, it was always that thing of, I'm coming to you, God, for answers and clarity because I don't know what's going on. Like, so even going in to Him in your confusion, in your, you're depressed or you're feeling anxious or you're tearful, whatever that may be, and by God's grace, He will give you, that clarity which is important. I wanted to ask as well, what's something that we can do to help support schools and adults who might struggle to identify mental health in young black boys? Because you're not going to see boils all over the skin. You're not going to see cuts and bumps, and it's the hidden, isn't it? It's the hidden pain. Yeah. So what can we do to help schools and adults identify like mental health in young black boys?
I can go. One thing I would say is that behavior is not. They're not behaving bad to be bad. Is always a sign of something. So if you switch that mindset from they're trying to be bad, they're trying to be disruptive to, they actually have a need that is not being met and they don't know how to communicate it. So how do I understand what their need is, and now how do I teach them how to communicate that need and have that vocabulary to actually express what their emotions are within that moment? I feel like that will have so much more of a change, because a lot of the time you always hear people saying, I feel misunderstood. So how can we start to understand them and help with the correction instead of punishment?
Bring in the professionals. It's as simple as that. People are studying this stuff from years and years and years, and they understand the science. They understand the reason for the patterns of behavior. So bring them in. Do you know what I mean? They're educated enough to be able to go and educate you guys and in the family, the home, and the church, wherever it is. Just bring them in consistently as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. I think for me it's I agree with you. I would say bring in the professionals and be intentional with understanding the communities that these people are coming from. Like one of the things that I do at work and that I've really pushed within my team is that when we're working to support the families and the students in the borough that I work in, when we get like a referral, I've said to the manager and I've said to the team, like we shouldn't be, oh, it's Black Caribbean or it's Black African. Are they Congolese? Are they Nigerian? Are they Ghanaian? Because already if you start to break it down, my understanding of that community now opens me to a different sort of level of their, support based on my, experience. Even like white, other European or whatever, I know quite a bit about the Turkish community. Or, a bit about, this community. It's about understanding what is it within those communities in terms of like their culture, in terms of, those communities and how they value education or how they value like mental health, and health services. So those little nuances, when we really get specific in identifying the communities that, our young people are coming from, what we tend to do is we are now becoming very intentional with the type of support, that we are offering them.
Very powerful. I would say all you said is amazing. I would say don't overcomplicate things and don't, just ask someone, how are you feeling? That's all it can be sometimes. Just how are you feeling? And then just let them talk and just be that person to listen. I think it's so good that we have these incentives and all of these professionals and everyone. But from experience, when you just ask someone, how are you feeling? They'll either cry or they'll either tell you how they're feeling or they'll either be silent. And then from there, you can kind of take it to where it needs to be.
One last final question for our guests. If there was one thing you could change about how society reviews or views the mental health of young Black boys, what would it be?
I would say more literature and exposure on mental health itself. There's always this big thing about physical health and keep active, keep running, eat healthy, but the mind that makes everything tick, right? Maybe more literature on that. And I think the reality is these young Black boys are going to turn into young Black men eventually, and are going to be fathers, husbands, X, Y, Z. And if they don't, I guess, understand their ways of thinking or their emotions at this young age, when they get older, it's going to play out on their kids and their kids and their kids, and the numbers are there. The numbers are there. Men are 3 times more likely than women to commit suicide. There's a big thing here about the lack of depression within men that are first-time fathers within the first year. 25% of men I've got diagnosed with disorders, mental health disorders, and out of 10% of that commit suicide. Wow. But there's no literature on that. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of talk about, postpartum and women, of course, but there's nothing on men. Yeah. Unless you go and deep dive yourself because you're feeling things yourself. So, yeah, more literature and exposure, I think.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is the older men actually doing the work. Because no matter what, the young boys are going to look up to you like you're the type of person I'm trying to be like. But if you're what I love so much is when I see Black men that are married, Black men that like actually create the space for each other, like their friendship is actually they show themselves love, like they care for each other by the way they talk about each other and create that space. When I see that, I just love it so much. So I'll say more Black men having that thing of it's bigger than me just doing what I want. Like there's gonna be a nephew and like little cousin looking up to me trying to be like me when they're older. Do I want them to be doing what I'm doing? No. So like I feel like sometimes when it's bigger than you, it gives you that extra push to do better, because it's not just about the father. And as a parent, it's about the other men around you that your child sees, because it's not just that one person, it's other people they pick up from. Do they have those habits that you want them to pick up as well? So I'll say like looking at it like that to see that even if you wouldn't do better for yourself, there's another young person looking up to you, so that would you do better for them as well?
Yeah, that's amazing. I think for me, I would say if there's one thing that I would want society to change about how they view mental health in young black boys, I would say is just to remind themselves that, you know, these young black boys are innocent. And I'm saying this because I've had moments, for example, where I've been out with my son and he's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And we'll go out and everyone's like, oh my God, like he's so cute, he's so whatever. And I've had moments and I thought to myself, but when he's 10, 11 and he starts wearing a hoodie.
Yeah, changes, I think, all the time. Yeah.
Like, you're going to change your perception of him. Because he's got old. Like, what's changed? Like, what's really changed? Like, when does the innocence go? When does that feeling of actually they're not a child anymore? So that same, you know, oh my God, he's so cute, or this, or, you know,
oh my God.
where does that go? And I think that's the one thing that, you know, like I really, really sort of fear for him. You know, I don't want to use, you know, the word fear, but you know, I think my hope is that like when I'm not there, I want society to look after him, because I'm not going to be there all the time.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. There's one thing you said. This thing just irritates me when they're like, oh, he's going to be a heartbreaker. Oh, he's going to be a bad boy. I said, God forbid. What kind of rubbish is... No. Like, the words we speak onto kids, it's like, oh, he's so cute. How can you be associating cute with being a heartbreaker? Like,
I repeat that.
them words there. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you guys said such amazing things. I would say society... don't believe all you see in the media. See people for who they are. Because if you believe what you see in the media, you stereotype. You begin to condition them. And trust God, man. We need God in this. We need God. I'm so heavy on God. We need God, because not everything is, you know, as I said, science and textbook, and some things are just surrendering. If you can surrender to God and just let him know how you're feeling, I promise you he'll come.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So that is the end of our episode. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. That has been the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoy this type of content and would like to watch more, please subscribe to our YouTube and social media platforms. Thank you.